Marco,
Sean,
you have a choice, and you'll make it now.
right now?
Right now.
Can I have some information?
No, no.
No?
You'll just have to trust what I'm saying is real, and you have to make some decisions on
All right. I'll just flip a coin and go with that.
it. All right.
Is that
Or
where
you
we're
just
going
blindly trust.
nowadays? Is that where we're going nowadays? Are you talking about the internet?
I think so. That's part of a quote that is in. I believe it's in the forward of a book we're going to talk about today. And the quote is much more eloquent. It's from music lyrics, I think. And we'll find out from our guest, Frank McCourt. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
It's nice to be with you, Sean, as usual.
Yeah, it's really good. It's good to see you again. And we had a chance to sit down and talk about a lot of this in depth not too long ago. And I'm excited to have you on the show. And since we've spoken, you've actually written a book, and that book is coming out. Where, if you're listening to this, the book is available now. It's published, and we're excited to have the conversation. It's rooted in the realities of what we call the internet and how it's impacting the way we live, and more specifically, how we manage democracy and how we make decisions in life, policy, and whatnot. So a lot to dig into here. And I'm excited, Marco and I get to have this chat with you because it's going to cover society and technology and cybersecurity and trust and you name it, so many things. It's a big effort you're undertaking. And I'm excited to get into it. Before we do that, though, Frank, for those who don't recognize the name, haven't seen you in a while, a few words about some of the things you've been up to, and then we'll lead off with the book.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm blessed in so many ways because I have a lot of different things going on. But I'd say first and foremost, I'm a father of 7 children. That's keeps me busy, and fifth generation steward of a family business that started in Boston in the 1800s. My great grandfather started building roads when Henry Ford started building cars. So, we've been building ever since. And, over time, the projects get, bigger little by little, and the geography gets bigger as well. And so we're blessed to be doing big infrastructure and development projects around the world now. And that's kind of what brought me to the big problem we have with the internet, because I see it as a engineering problem. We have a problem with how the infrastructure is designed. If we can fix that, well, then we can fix a whole lot of things downstream. And it's interesting in your introduction there, Sean, you talked about all the things that we could touch on in this conversation, because the internet, as it is now being used and experienced, is connected to everything we do. And that's the point, that if this technology is designed correctly and optimizing for the right things, well, we're going to have awesome lives and strong democracies and healthy kids and great civil, discourse. And if it's designed poorly, then, we're going to do harm to kids, and we're going to have a lot of, noise in the system, because we're going to have a very contaminated information ecosystem, and we're going to have democracy struggle, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, this is a big issue, and if we can fix this, and by the way, it is very fixable, then we can, just have better lives, and as individuals and as members of, our communities and as society at large. So, yeah, that's what the project is about, and I'm really prioritizing my own personal time now in a way to spend in professional time, obviously, on this project, and stepped away a little bit from the business, hired a full-time CEO so that I could have the gift of time. And this is now my passion.
And I think you make an interesting point, Frank, of course, in that decades of investing in infrastructure to support basically allows us to get around and receive the things that we want in life. And that infrastructure wasn't, I'm sure it changed over time, right? And to smaller cars, now bigger trucks hauling tons of materials around. And loads more people with cars. We have self-driving cars coming. The infrastructure has to accommodate and change to address these changes in life. So how do you see where things have come from with respect to the internet, where we're still reliant upon the initial design, where it's putting us at, I don't want to say at risk, but maybe at risk, at least putting us in a position where we might not get the best out of it that we think we should or are?
Yeah, I don't think, the notion of being put at risk is at all an overstatement. And, particularly if you look at it from the vantage point of, the well-being of young children, right? We now have the research is in the way this technology is working, and I'm talking about internet technology and social media in particular. It's doing a great deal of harm to young children, and we could talk about that further if you like. I think we agree, and most of your listeners would probably readily agree, that to really have a coherent society and community living, that sharing a set of facts, all having a view of the world where we could separate fact from fiction, is probably a good thing. And then we can disagree, by the way. We can have different opinions about those facts and what to do, but having, no agreement on what's fact and what's fiction, that's a problem. And it's a problem if you want to have any kind of coherent civil discourse, and it's certainly a problem if you want to have a functioning democracy, because democracy is built on a very simple, powerful, important yet fragile concept called trust. And if you destroy trust, there's no way that democracy survives, never mind thrives. And I would argue, by the way, the same thing for market economy. I mean, we have in the United States, we are the most telling story ever, right? In terms of when you relate it to the time it took to accomplish it. I mean, the United States has built an economy which is the most powerful in the world in a relatively short period of time. When you look at civilization, right? To do so in a couple hundred years is amazing, and that was done because we built a trusted marketplace. And if you destroy trust, then tell me how market capitalism survives. I go back to your framing. I don't think saying that this is all at risk is an overstatement. And I think this is the biggest issue of our time, and because it's connected to so many other issues, and it's the underpinning of the operating systems, the real operating systems that we have, which is our political operating system and our economic operating system. So, yeah, I think it's a huge issue. But I'm not here to just throw more logs on the fire of the world's coming to an end or we're all doomed. I actually think this is a correctable problem, and that's what I want to talk about. And once we correct it, then we can take advantage of generative artificial intelligence and all the other things that are happening. But if we don't, I think we will rue the day. I think we'll regret it very, very much, because we're not headed in the right direction right now. There's, of course, the internet does good things along with the bad things, but we shouldn't be, if we were to use what's a metaphor? Let's say we had a plumbing system that piped water into the homes of 1 million people in a city. If more than half of them got clean water and the remainder got toxic water, we wouldn't say that plumbing system is doing more good than harm, so let's keep it like it is. We would all be working feverishly to rid the toxicity from the water that's killing people and poisoning people and so forth. So it's to me a false argument when people say, well, it's doing some good things too. Well, yeah, but that's not the point. We should have an internet that really amplifies great behavior and optimizes for human beings and really mitigates and minimizes bad things. And that's not the internet we have today, unfortunately.
All right. So if Sean knows me, the audience knows what kind of conversation I have. My show is Redefining Society, where we talk about technology and society. So when Sean told me you should come on this podcast, I was pretty excited. And all the things you're saying right now, I'm like, I don't even know where to start because there's so many open can already in the way you presented it, cans. So I want to start from one thing that I saw is one of the chapter on your book, which is you mentioned the social contract. I bring it up all the time. My background is political science and sociology, so the social contract always stays in my mind when we talk about technology. And I often say it's maybe time to renegotiate that contract. So the way we interact with technology, the way we put guardrail around technology, or maybe the way that we need to wipe out certain way that we've been doing things until now. And just because we've done it like this in the past, that doesn't mean we should keep going. So I'd like to start with that, maybe with what you can see as an important change that we can do in our society. And then I'm sure with Sean we'll dig into the technology, maybe vision for that.
Yeah, Marco, I think it's a very good starting place because I use the American Project as the framing device for the book, and Thomas Paine and his pamphlet Common Sense that he wrote in 1775 as kind of the inspiration. Thomas Paine pointed out before there was a United States of America or a self-governed democracy or a set of unalienable human rights that we had adopted, he pointed out that his fellow settlers in the colonies had a choice to make. They could continue to be subjects of a monarchy, or they could decide to be citizens, and meaning they have all the same rights that their king had, and that this fluke of nature of someone being born into a family and having all the power and everybody else being subject to that, it's maybe not the best structure for human beings. What about a different model where we're all created equal, right? And we create a government of, by, and for people, and we have a set of human rights, liberty, freedom, agency, choice, and a set of property rights as well, where we can own things and do business and trade things, and we're not just working the field for enough crops to sustain ourselves and giving all the rest to the manor lord or ultimately to the king, but rather we could own the land and do with it what we can to create value for ourselves, our family, our community, our country, and so forth. So this was radical in a way, but quite simple in the way Thomas Paine put it forward to his fellow colonists. And I'm glad people chose the latter. They chose to be citizens and step away from subjecthood, because my forebears came to this country, from a place where they had very few rights and really couldn't own anything. And they came because of the dream, the so-called American dream, where they could have those rights and they could make something better of their lives, and they could leave poverty behind and leave this idea of oppression behind. And by the way, they came as a result of a potato famine in Ireland, where they were people were dying in great numbers, and the king didn't seem to much care, right? And so people took matters into their own hands. In my family's case, to come to America to make a better life, and I'm the beneficiary of all that. And the point in the American project is not just this idea. And by the way, the book, has in it's called Our Biggest Fight, but it's reclaiming liberty, humanity, dignity in the digital age. And that's part of who we are as human beings, right? The human set of rights that our forefathers and mothers gained for us. What we also talk in the book about, though, is that those rights don't matter unless you respect them in other people. And so the social contract that you refer to is a contract that, for me to have rights that matter and for those rights to be worth something, I have to respect those same rights in you. And it's that social contract that's the connective tissue that pulls all this together. So I would say that it's not so much that we need to throw everything out and start over again. I think we need to go back to the basics, understand what's made, for instance, the American project successful and other similar projects around the world successful, and then recalibrate for the internet age, because we have a whole structure that was built pre our digital lives, and now we live digital lives fully. Everything is about us is digitized, right? It's collected, and it goes somewhere, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that in a moment. And the punchline here is, I don't want to give up all my rights just to use the internet. And on the internet, I don't have rights, right? I'm not treated as a person with dignity and with liberty, and in a way that I'm not even treated as, never mind, I'm not even treated as a human being, never mind with humanity. I'm treated as just data. And so what's happened here is we're moving rapidly in the opposite direction of what I just described with the American project, i.e. that move from subjecthood to citizenship. We're moving from citizenship to subjecthood in the digital age, and the power that be in this digital age they're not men and women with crowns and robes. They're these individuals that control these large platforms that control our lives. And that's what we need to fix. And that's what is fixable.
If I may, a comment on this. Sean, I didn't meet with you like Sean did, and Sean shared an article, I think was on Times Magazine, and you used this mantra that the technology world have been using for a long time, which is let's move fast and destroy everything. And I feel I want to connect it with this, and maybe with this we jump into the technology, because imagine if the Thomas Paine discourse was more based on let's change things in a constructive way into let's just destroy everything because we disagree, right? And in a way, what I'm trying to say is the internet maybe moved without a plan of certain guardrail, and company maybe took advantage of it, and they ended up destroying these rights that we could have built in a much better way. And I agree with what your vision of it's not too late, we can do something about it.
I have an utmost respect for a gentleman by the name of Tim Berners-Lee, who created the World Wide Web. And I've talked to him about this, and because I wanted to be clear on his intentions and what he set out to build and what he gifted to the world. He didn't invent something and then say I'm going to make $1 trillion regardless of the impact on society. He created something that was intended to be very creative, an equalizer, a way to give people access to others' knowledge and information, to, the so-called tide that lifts all boats, right? And that's not what's happened here. And so if we step back, Marco, and just think about, the internet as it evolved, it's not, 1989 is basically when a few, researchers agreed to adopt it's two co-joined protocols. It's now known as TCP/IP, and what that did is it connected devices, so their devices kind of talk to each other. Now they knew at the time that who was on the other end of those devices. I mean, they knew that there were people involved, and quite frankly, they were trusted counterparts because everybody knew everybody else, and they knew who they were exchanging these large data sets with over what device. I think it is worth noting at this point, though, that we remain a device on the internet to this day. We have an IP address, right? It's not Marco, Sean, and Frank on the internet. It's the device that we're on that's on the internet. It's the machine. And then in 1989, Tim, put forward another protocol, thin layer, called HTTP. And that is a protocol that, once adopted at scale, connected all the data. All the data that we create was now connected regardless of what device it sat on. It no longer was constrained to these singular devices. And that was a huge revolution, right, of possibilities, and it set that in motion 35 years ago. By the way, same birth date as the launch of the book, March 12th. In 1989 was the birth of the World Wide Web, and here we are 35 years later. And his intention was to create something that was very utopian, really, as I said, something that was a gift to humanity that lots and lots of people could benefit from. What happened fairly quickly, however, was the move fast and break things phase, which was the phase that you refer to, which was the app age, or the app era, right? Where big apps were built that were designed to do what? Suck up our data and aggregate it and apply algorithms to it to optimize for whatever these companies decided to optimize for. And we were dragged into a world where we're surveilled 24 hours a day, our data is scraped, and somebody else is deciding what to do to manipulate us, to target us, to trigger us, to get us to buy things and get us to behave in certain ways, and kind of hurt us into these echo chambers and so forth, all without regard to impacts it's having on children, or impact it's having on society, or impacts it's having on democracy. And this is, when you look back at this move, this pithy phrase, move fast and break things, that came out of Silicon Valley and Facebook and so forth, in retrospect, it's just irresponsible. It's just irresponsible to take something as powerful as the internet, connect billions of people without regard to the impact you're having on people. But that's what was done. And because people didn't understand the harms part of the equation, they kind of went along with it and said, well, this is kind of interesting. We're all connected by the internet. This is amazing. This is going to be great. Well, we learned fairly quickly on it's not so great, because it actually amplifies bad behavior and at the expense of good behavior. Most people, presumably the three of us, aren't on the internet today thinking about how we're going to, mess with other people or steal something from people or hurt people. We use it as a tool, right? To have this conversation, for instance, and it enables it, and it's wonderful. But there are lots of people who are on the internet looking to hurt other people and scam other people, and they don't care if they're putting out information that's totally false and corrupting our information ecosystem, or doing things with, look at what we've learned about, Facebook knowing about algorithms that were harming kids, but Zuckerberg went forward with it anyway. It's just wrong. And how much longer are we going to put up with it? That's the question. Once again, like Thomas Paine said, and like Sean said at the beginning of this interview, we have a choice. We can either continue to go down the path we're going on now, be dragged into this future that none of us wants, watch things the things that we love and care about be destroyed. For what? The ability to use the internet? That's a silly deal. Let's go down a different future and have an internet that actually optimizes for what we love and makes life better for people.
So you've used the word people many times here, and there's a chapter in your book called Personhood. And so you described we are the device and we are the data, and organizations are using that to determine who we are. And yes, we get value out of it, but I don't think, and you mentioned people using the internet to compromise or take advantage of other people. My point I'm trying to make is I don't think people are understood or a recognized entity in the internet. I think it still is systems or devices and data. And if I'm an attacker, I'm attacking a device and data, and I'm using that to my advantage. If I'm a company, I'm using a device, an app, and some data to make some money. Yes, I might be trying to connect people on a social platform, but the ultimate goal is to provide a marketing machine that people can target folks with different ads. So I guess we're losing the sense of, or never had the sense of what a person is in the internet. And I think in recent years, we're trying to apply, I'll call it a patch, to the internet in the form of some laws and regulations, GDPR and in Europe for privacy, things like that. So, but I don't know that applying a patch like that's going to solve the problem of we are people on the internet.
Yeah, I'm in massive agreement with you, and hopefully, when people read the book, that point will come across, clearly. We are people that benefit from a set of human rights. We've proven that, right? We are people that want, as individuals, liberty, for instance, but we are also people that understand and respect that in others because of the social contract, and we understand that we can do so much alone, but we don't live on islands. But if we do develop community standards and norms and behaviors, we can actually, do great things when we collaborate. And by the way, it takes a market, right, to sell things to. So of course we need to have a communal sense of society and so on and so forth. But these are all people principles, as you're pointing out. The internet, built to connect devices and then data, is not at all built for people, and it actually dehumanizes us because it sucks all the valuable information out of us, and then somebody else decides what to do with that information. We are digital beings in this world, right? Think of it like you're born with biological DNA, and then your life now is captured digitally, and that's your lived experience, is your digital DNA. It is you in this world. There's no separation between the biological Sean and the digital Sean. It's one and the same. That's why I urge people, when they hear the word data, don't think about it as this abstract thing that doesn't matter. Think about it as your personhood. It's who you are in the digital age. So why not another protocol that we all adopt, which actually, for the first time, connects us as people on the internet, as opposed to, connecting data or connecting machines. So DSNP, which is what we've put forward as an idea, would work with TCP/IP and HTTP, but for the first time, now we would be in charge of our digital lives. We would own and control our data. We own us again. They don't own us. We own us. This is very Thomas Paine-esque, isn't it? Right? The king doesn't own me. I own me.
We're not the subjects in this game.
So that's right. Exactly right. So now imagine an internet where we're not clicking on the terms and conditions of use of a few big platforms, but the new apps are clicking on our terms and conditions of use for our data. It's our data. It's not their data. Now, of course, we want to aggregate it and do great things with it, whether it's economically or for the common good. But let's do it with permission, where we'll decide who gets to use our data for what purpose. And if we don't like what they're doing, we're going to rescind the permission. We have agency again. We have control again. We have liberty again. Oh, and by the way, if there's trillions of dollars of value created, we get to share in the value that's created. That's a data sharing economy. Imagine what the world would look like then, and how many people who are on the outside looking in would now be on the inside and be able to benefit, because we're all human beings with value. And right now, we're all being treated not as human beings, and being scraped of whatever value we have in the digital world. And it's not correct. It's not correct morally. Most importantly, it's not correct legally or in a sense of fairness, in my opinion, either. But morally, it's all wrong. It's all upside down. And as I said earlier, we shouldn't be giving up all of our rights and giving away our property just to
what's
use the
your
internet.
take, Frank? What's your take on the kind of like the deception that we've been subject to with the free services, where it almost makes me think about the king owning the land you cultivated for him, and then you keep what you need for living. How you started, which was the entire system in the Middle Age in Italy as well, in Europe, but you were not even on the internet. You were not even informed that this was going to happen, right? So here's your social media platform. It's free. Have fun. Connect with your friends. Do what you want. In the meantime, we're going to scrap everything. So
what's really interesting, Marco, is, and it's connected to the prior point about human beings on the internet.
Yeah.
What we've learned in the kind of the off the tracks internet, the so-called let's call it phase one of the internet was TCP/IP enabled. That's machines or devices. Phase two, World Wide Web, enabled by HTTP. That's the World Wide Web. Okay, and then suddenly we're brought into this different world. I'm gonna call it the app era, which we live in now. Which the first two were decentralized. The third one is highly centralized, highly autocratic, surveillance-based, right? And what did we learn? What we learned is that the value in the internet, the so-called network effect, is in people's relationships with one another. It's actually not in the data that we keep on referring to. It's actually in people's social graphs, and that now are the property, in the minds of these big platforms, their property. They have a social map. They've mapped us all, and tens of thousands of attributes about each of us, and who we connect with, what we do, how we feel, what we're going to do. And it's now become a predictive model, right? It's so much information, they can predict what you're going to do when fed something or given something. So it's highly, highly manipulative. But the value is in the people part of the internet, not the machine or data part of it. And that's why it's so urgent that we make this a people-centric internet, but with people in charge of themselves and their data and what's done with it, as opposed to having that be kind of lulled into thinking that they're getting some free app and therefore it's worth it, and don't worry about your quote data. What people should be worried about is that they're being surveilled 24 hours a day, and everything about them is being recorded digitally, and then that's being fed back in a way that optimizes not for their health and well-being and safety. It optimizes for whatever these big platforms want to optimize it for, and that's how we entered this world of an attention economy, an ad tech economy, call it what you will, which is about selling things and ads and so forth and so on. Which, by the way, in the new internet, we're all going to want to be able to buy things and have them delivered to our house the following morning. Don't get me wrong. But why not have an internet where, rather than me being targeted morning, noon, and night, I just get on the internet and tell everybody else who's on it, establish that I'm a real person, by the way. That's the first step. And then I tell everybody that I want to buy something, or I want to do something, and I'm a real person, and I'm actually really want to do this. Isn't that more valuable to advertisers and companies than having to guess what I might be interested in or what I might want? So we're going to have the benefits of the internet without the negatives. And believe me, if the government said, I'm going to deliver your mail for free and no more postage stamp, but I'm going to put cameras in every room of your house, and and in your car and in your office, and I'm going to open your mail, and I'm going to read it, and if there's anything valuable in there, it's mine now. I'm going to use it, and and by the way, if your young daughter is worried about her weight, I've got something for her, right, to prey on her. And if you have a good business idea, I'm going to go ahead and replicate that. And your relationships are now my relationships. If the government came to you and said you can have free mail for those things, you'd think they were out of their minds. But that's what we've let happen. It's just not the government, right? It's these big companies. And I just say centralized autocratic surveillance technology, whether it's the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese government that controls the information, or whether it's 5 platforms. For me as an individual, it's the same thing. I don't want anybody controlling me, right? And king, queen, a political party or a big company. I want to be in charge of myself. I want to own me. Now, in just again, I want to highlight, however, though, because it's so easy to rotate around the damages and the harms. This could be incredible for humanity with a fix of the infrastructure. And again, distributing water to millions of people in a city is a really great innovation. We need water to live, but distributing clean water and healthy water is imperative, not just water.
Yeah, I couldn't help but, as you were talking, thinking about some of the positive points as well, Frank. We want access to financial services and resources to live our lives. We want access to healthcare, to benefit from precision care and societal care, where we see trends and we can look for ways to help people live happier, healthier lives using information that we have, but that we still maintain. I know there's some projects underway for those 2 sectors in particular, but they don't address the bigger problem. And one might say to address the bigger problem is too big of an undertaking. But you believe that it is possible, and you have Project Liberty that you started to help move the needle there. And I think there was another quote in the book. I'm gonna take me 1 second. I'm gonna go back to that because I think it's an important part here. Apologies, everybody listening and watching. Start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible. I love that quote, especially in the context of this. Clearly, you chose that purposefully for the book. Take a moment to describe Project Liberty for us, why you founded that, what its objectives are, how you're starting to move the needle with what's necessary so that we can achieve what's possible.
Well, we've talked a lot about technology and its impact on society and, our individual lives and well-being. So at the core of Project Liberty is a solution to the infrastructure problem, right? So DSMP which enables a let's call it a universally accessible global social graph, as opposed to what we have now, which is billions of atomized graphs being sucked up by some big platforms. Imagine now the data that we all create every day is part of the internet itself, and we all get to benefit from that with permission of the person who controls their piece of the data in that mass ocean of data. By the way, not only a massive ocean of data, it grows every minute of every day, and that's the point, right? The value is just growing and growing, and we all know that there's tremendous benefit and value that can be achieved and realized by aggregating the data and then solving problems. I mean, it's a digital form of collective genius, right? And that's what it is. So Project Liberty has at its core a tech track, but beyond that, and I think, Marco, this goes back to the point you made earlier around move fast and break things. Like when you change things, you have to have in mind, where are you going, right? What are you changing to? Not just tear it down and we all get to live in the rubble of it. So in the move fast and break things era, it was just some technologists, the image is a technologist in a t-shirt and a whiteboard and figuring out what's good for society, right? I don't think that's a winning formula. Let's invite the social scientists into the conversation this time and be inputting when it comes to how the tech is developed and what principles and values are being embedded and what we're optimizing for. So we have 5 different universities involved now, and that number will grow, focused on the research, the policy expertise, the governance expertise, and the social science expertise generally, right? Ethicists, behavioral economists, psychologists, all the people that are needed to build good tech. And then side by side, there's a track that focuses in on building out the commercial ecosystem so that millions of builders will get involved in building this new, evolved, better internet, because nothing's going to happen if there isn't an alternative, right? People are going to stay and live where they live now on the bad internet if there's not a better one. And then thirdly, and I think perhaps the most important, is the track which turns this from a tech project to a societal project. It's the track that says this is really a civic project, a social project, a political project, not a tech project. The tech is just a tool to advance society. It's not the be-all, end-all that society has to react to. And that's where we're at right now. We're all reacting to this tech because it's so powerful, and trying to put these regulatory band-aids on it and trying to make it less harmful and a little bit more safe. You know what the biggest industry in the current version of the internet is? What's the biggest single industry?
We all know, Frank.
Yeah, it's true. It's security, cybersecurity, and I would argue that when you need so much effort to mitigate damages, right, and to make something safer and better because it's so porous and hackable because of its, the data is all stored in these, singular places, and so it's very vulnerable. Why not take advantage of current technology and have shared state, have this data stored in a decentralized way so it's not hackable, and that we get to be in charge. It's just we have technology now available that we didn't have 20, never mind 35 years ago. So yes, let's use it. And the only impediment to this is the big tech companies aren't going to want it to happen because they're not going to want to give up their control. But I look, I'm a capitalist. I'm all for people making money and generating things. I draw the line when it's destroying everything I love. when it's destroying democracy, destroying civil discourse, completely destroying our information ecosystem, harming young kids. And I said earlier, I have 7, and 3 of them happen to be young, and are going to be impacted mightily by this. This is enough is enough. Enough is enough. We hear, we read. Not only do we don't even need to read about it or hear about it. We all know and can see the differences in our own lives, our own behavior, and that of our children, those of us that have kids. We have all the evidence we need because we have eyes and we have brains and we have our own awareness of what's right and wrong in the world, and we all know something is broken. And so the point the book makes is it all gets connected to the tech because the tech is now ubiquitous in our lives. We are digital citizens or digital subjects, and we need to fix this. And if we fix this, we won't solve every problem in the world, but we'll have a shot. We'll now be back on track where we have a massively powerful tool that can solve problems at scale and share wealth with people and do really, really great things. And we won't be spending our time and energy putting out the fires and dealing with mitigating the harms that the current technology is creating. And I think it creates a brighter, more hopeful future. And that's what I want for my kids and all kids. I mean, isn't that our job as adults and isn't that the only metric that matters? Are we leaving a world better than the one we found or worse? It's pretty simple. And is it safer and healthier and better for the next generation or worse?
Yeah.
Very basic metrics. And right now we're failing.
Yeah. And the reason I laughed because I didn't want to cry on camera when you mentioned the cybersecurity expenses. It's a core topic of my show, Redefining Cybersecurity. And where almost every guest I asked them, could you not eliminate spend on team, technology, processes, angst, burnout, paying for cyber insurance policy? If you just did this differently from the beginning, if you eliminated the exposure, eliminated the risk, eliminated the impact that this can negatively have on the business, and then on your customers and society potentially, even if we're talking about companies that reach those folks, you can eliminate a lot of that negative stuff that could be put back into something else to have better society, to have better services, to have better products, whatever it is that we want to achieve. But we're spending so much money just plugging the gaps, patching the holes, trying to pretend that everything is okay. And we're wasting a ton of money and a ton of time.
And time. And we're wasting time. And this is the ultimate, for me. It's so ironic because our political system is broken, and in large measure because of this same technology, right? Because right now you've got the extremes dominating on both sides, because that's what's sticky online. That's what gets likes and followers and clicks and so forth.
Those have the barbs that catch onto our clothes, Frank.
Yeah. But your point about rather than spending all this investment in mitigating harms, right, and trying to make something that's very insecure secure, what if we just fix it at the core infrastructure level and then redeploy all that brilliant talent to actually build a better version of the internet? And wouldn't we be able to do a lot of things in life more inexpensively? Wouldn't we be able to remove a lot of bureaucracy? And by the way, we'd have to have a plan to do that, because you just don't eliminate all of it, because there are jobs at stake, and not everybody can be trained to, who's pushing paper somewhere, to be trained to be a technologist or trained to be, this. So we need to be. That's why I say it's a social project. This is about advancing humanity, advancing us, and as a proud American, I want America to show the way. as to how this can, what does the 2.0 version of democracy look like? What does the 2.0 version of capitalism look like? That's what I want to be part of that conversation. And instead of, I don't want to get too far onto the geopolitical track here, but, I think we all know at this stage of the game that autocratic centralized surveillance technology is probably going to work better for China than democratic societies, right? If I asked you to give me 3 phrases or words to describe democracy, I don't think you'd pick centralized autocratic surveillance based as the first 3 things that would pop into your mind. So we have technology that is not in harmony with our values and our political, supposedly, our political ideals and the political system we have. So we need to get technology to support and strengthen our democracy. And sadly, one of the great secret sauces of the American project is we created models that people wanted to replicate, and we exported those models and let people replicate them. Recently, we've created a model and we've exported it to democracies around the world, and unfortunately, it's destroying those democracies as well because we've exported a killer for fact-based information ecosystems. We've allowed mis and disinformation to proliferate in a way that it's undermining democracies everywhere. And we have an obligation to fix that because I'm not saying that was the intention, but I'm saying that's the result. And we need to go fix that as Americans because it's our tech that's doing the harm. I don't think most democracies are gravitating towards Chinese tech. I think they would prefer to use American, but both of them neither of them is healthy for democracy or healthy for young kids, and that's my point. So let's not be stuck with these 2 choices. Let's go ahead and create a technology that we can all be proud of, and it's solving problems and strengthening society and strengthening democracies and is really super helpful to kids. And by the way, I don't want to lose sight of it, and shares the economic benefits more broadly.
Well, I'm going to end with a thought. I have many, but I'm going to choose this, which is maybe technology has been leading because it's easier than culture and society. It's faster, and we kind of got used to follow that without questioning it. And I agree with you. I mean, we need to start the other way around. I mean, the process needs to be inverted. Right? I mean, you start with what do we need? Is there the technology to achieve what we need to do? And not, here's all the technology we have. Let's pick what's going to make us money. And then eventually, if it does something wrong, we'll just patch it. It's just not the good way of thinking. And I think is the easy way of thinking. The easy way to make money and the easy way to allure people and make them happy. It makes me think about the Roman, panem and circenses, where you give entertainment and basic food, and they don't meddle with the politics. So yes. I don't know. That's the negative view, maybe, but sometimes I feel like that's really what this is. But there is a lot of people like you out there that are fighting this fight. I mean, in our little, we tell stories and we have this conversation, and you created, a structure, an organization that is really focused on this. So there is hope. Even if I said something very negative, I still stay hopeful.
Yeah, me too. I think there is hope, and I think all of what you all are doing to kind of socialize this and what I hope Project Liberty is really mostly about is about creating the, coalescing people, really bringing people together. We don't have all the answers, and we're not looking to do anything that anybody else is doing. What we're looking to do is find all those people that you refer to, Marco, that are out there, and bring them together under a common banner. And I could care less what it's called. It's just let's all align and fix this. This is why we're all, this is exciting. This is fun. This is why what we all should be. Aren't we all kind of looking for a project right now that it actually is fun and exciting, and where we can make a difference and make the world better and make our lives better, instead of this, mindless, scrolling and it's just, I think we're all getting the picture, like this. There's not a real there, right? It's just it's pretty vacuous. So let's fix it and get it right. And yeah, so Project Liberty wants to. And by the way, the title of the book is not My Biggest Fight. It's Our Biggest Fight. And the reason, I use that terminology is it's going to be many of us, and it is going to be a fight. Let's face it. I mean, people aren't just the big tech isn't going to just, roll over and say, you know what, you're right. This is healthier for kids, and it's, better to, and of course it's more consistent with democracy. And yes, as a moral matter, of course, this data is part of someone's personhood, and we're stealing it and all that. So but at the end of the day, it will change if people want it to change. And I'm with you too, that if we really look, civilization has been built on a pursuit of knowledge, right? And that is a deliberate process, right? Where we try to find and create the best version of truth as we know it right now, right? And it might change in the future when more information is available, but it's a deliberate, slow process. It's not like a, spin up an answer tomorrow type process. By the way, democracy is also a deliberative process, I might add. But, if we were living in a world where somebody came forward and said, the earth is not flat, it's round, and we spent all of our time putting together fake videos proving that it's flat, and somebody else was putting together true videos proving that it's round, but we're all just stuck in that loop, in that argument. And by the way, the algorithm's designed to keep us there because they want 50% of us on the side of round and 50% of us on the side of flat, because that's what's going to keep us debating it, keep us triggered, keep us online, so that more ads can be sold? Are you kidding me? This is so your point about the need for culture. This is a cultural shift. We need to realize that the shift that was caused by the technology was not a great one for humanity. So now we need to take control of our lives again and do something positive. Cedric Price, and I'm going to screw up the quote, but it said something like this: If technology is the answer, then what is the question?
Exactly. And Frank, I mean, I love that you said this is an exciting time. I mean, it's easy to be, less than enthused about where we are and just kind of go about our business and hope that, maybe not even hope that somebody else takes care of it for us, but just hope that we don't have too negative of an impact that we can't live our lives. But I love that you can view this as a positive, exciting time, and I share that enthusiasm with you. I want to go back to my beginning as we wrapped here, because I opened this with a portion of a quote that you have in the book, which is from Glenn Hansard and Marquette Araglova, the Falling Slowly song. I only used the second and third sentences of the quote, which is, you have a choice and you'll make it now. And I left out the first part purposefully, and I'm going to bring it in purposefully now, which is, raise your hopeful voice. You have a choice. You'll make it now. And we are the people in this equation. And without us in that equation, then we're just stuck with the 50-50 choice. And yes, we'll continue to make it, but we're not going to have any positive long-term impact if we don't realize that we have a voice in this party as well. So I'm thrilled that you wrote the book, which, let me just get the full title for everybody. It's called Our Biggest Fight: Reclaiming Liberty, Humanity, and Dignity in the Digital Age. Frank, congratulations. You with Michael Casey, I believe, participated in that. Congratulations on Project Liberty. I was really intrigued when we had a chance to meet about that previously, and I'm excited to share a little bit about it here. We're going to include links to the book, links to the project, and a call to action for everybody now to have that voice and to view this as an exciting time. I'm going to add that last bit along there with you, Frank. So thank you for joining us. Frank, any final words before we wrap up?
No, well, you're welcome, and it was a pleasure to be with you both. As I said earlier, I really appreciate you socializing this. I think that's what really has to be done. We each have to take our own spheres of influence and our own networks and share the information, because the ultimate network effect, it over time and for humanity, is the human network effect. And we talk a lot about the tech network effect. Well, let's click into gear our human networks, and let's deal with this set of, this. Yep, it's a daunting problem, but we can fix it, and let's all raise our hopeful voices right now.
Yep. Try to take the human out of the tech conversation. There's going to be an empty space.
Yeah, and that's where that's where we're headed. As and we talk a lot about. I'm sure in the next time we're together, we'll talk about AI and generative AI and then eventually artificial general intelligence. If it's not for people here, then we're going to all just look back and say, what were we thinking, right? So and by the way, same technology, right? It's a basically predictive technology with bigger data sets and more compute power, but it's the same broken model. Why would we ever make it more powerful without fixing it first? I can't even imagine that.
Yep, full of bias. And Frank, if I recall, I believe after our first meeting, I had a list of about 10 episodes we could record, just because this is such a big and important topic. But I'm thrilled to get this first one on the books with you and connecting it to the launch of your book. And I do encourage everybody to connect and be part of Project Liberty and share their voice. So with that, we'll say goodbye until next time. And please do subscribe to Redefining Cybersecurity podcast, which is my show, Redefining Society podcast, which is Marco's, and have this conversation. Share it with your friends and your peers. It's time to make a change. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Ourbigestfight.com.